The point guard position in the NBA is arguably the most loaded in NBA history. Especially considering today, we are going to be debating 2 point guards that many people tend to leave out of their top 10 point guards of all time list, despite both of them being on the 75th anniversary team and each of them playing in relatively the same era. And those two guys are Dave Bing and Nate Archibald. What's going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops. And today we are going to be using the old formula from my Oscar Robertson vs. Steph Curry video to compare these two legendary point guards today. So as a reminder, there are 20 different categories. There are 5 categories worth 2 points, that being speed, agility, strength, advanced analytics, and circumstances. There are 12 categories worth 5 points, that being mid-range, finishing, 3-point, playmaking, IQ, versatility, rebounding, clutchness, athleticism, efficiency, impact, and durability. And the 3 categories worth 10 points include scoring, defense, and accolades, all of which totals to 100 points. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Starting with speed, this one obviously goes to Nate "Tiny" Archibald. He was easily one of the quickest players, not only for his time, but of all time. And Dave Bing was a bit more paced than Archibald, so this 2-pointer is going to go to Tiny. Agility is a weird skill to categorize to many people, but it's about the ability to move quickly and easily. So therefore, Archibald will take this one as well. In terms of fast break opportunities, especially, and as well as off the dribble, Nate Archibald just had the quicker first step. Now as for strength, this one is going to go to Dave Bing. I mean, there's a reason Nate Archibald is nicknamed Tiny, but it's not because of his height necessarily. I mean, he was 6'1", which is about average, especially for his time. But weighing in at 150 pounds is extremely slim. In fact, if Archibald were in the league today, he would weigh the least of every player in the NBA right now by more than 10 pounds. Dave Bing is 6'3" and 180 pounds, which still doesn't seem entirely muscular, but in comparison to Tiny, he definitely has this edge. Advanced analytics will favor Nate Archibald. He has a higher box plus minus, a higher VORP rating, more win shares, a higher PER, which are some of the most commonly addressed advanced stats, and all of which favor Nate Archibald. Now as for circumstances, the 2 points is going to be split for both. Archibald started his career with arguably the worst organization in NBA history, being the Cincinnati Royals, who had just lost their franchise superstar Oscar Robertson. However, it wasn't always a bad situation for him, as he played many years with the Bird, McHale, and Paris Celtics too, and even won a ring with them. As for Dave Bing, he played most of his days in Detroit with no real help outside of Bob Lanier. Then in Washington, despite being a top 6 finisher in MVP voting in 1976, they decided to waive him 1 year later. And the year after that, in 1978, they won the championship. So both of them kind of got a raw deal. Maybe you could argue Bing had it a little bit worse, but overall, I'm just going to split these 2 points for 1 apiece. Now moving into the 5-point categories, starting with mid-range, this one's going to go to Dave Bing. He had such a nice touch around the rim, 10 to 15 foot area specifically, and arguably one of the best mid-range shooters of the 1970s. Archibald was an okay mid-range shooter, but nothing on Bing's level. However, finishing is an opposite story. Archibald was arguably one of the best finishers with a nice touch around the rim and was especially impressive for his size, plus his first step helped a lot. Bing wasn't a bad finisher either, just not in the same tier with Archibald for that category. Now the 3-point shot is going to go to Nate Archibald, and this may seem a little bit unfair to Dave Bing because, well, he never played with a 3-point line, and he was a better mid-range shooter than Archibald. And especially since Archibald only shot 22.4% from 3 in his career, only making 19 of them in the final 5 years of his career. However, it is impossible to know how well Dave Bing would have been as a deep-range shooter. Sure, some guys prior to this time like Jerry West and Oscar Robertson would shoot from this distance on occasion, but Bing didn't do it nearly as much, as there really was no reason to anyways. However, it is simply just a part of the game, and it's hard to give this one to Dave Bing. Playmaking is also going to go to Archibald. I mean, he scored at a high level, while both players averaged 2.7 turnovers a game for their careers, although Archibald contributed 1.4 more assists per game than Bing as well, so he edges it out here. IQ is going to go to Nate Archibald. This could be debated too, but arguably better shot selection, smart pure point guard, setting up his teammates, and the one thing that's for certain is his knowledge of the game was one of the deepest in the history of the league. But like I said, one can make this argument as well for Bing, but I think the statistical background for this claim is the major separator. Now, versatility is going to go to Bing. Not much to be said here. Bing can play both the point guard and the combo guard, while Archibald is pretty much just a pure point guard, and he's only the size of one as well. Rebounding is also going to go to Bing. Now, I get it, he is a little bit taller, so he does have that edge, but Dave Bing averaged 3.8 rebounds a game for his career, while Archibald averaged 2.3 per game. Now, even if you want to nitpick, we can just compare 1970 to 1978, which were the 8 seasons that both these guys were in the league together. Bing averaged 3.4 rebounds a game over those years, and Archibald 2.8. And this also includes a prime to older Dave Bing, as opposed to a young to prime Archibald. So this one still goes to Dave Bing. Now in the clutch, we're just going to give this one to both of them. Neither of them really had many iconic staples for plays in their careers, but both of them were generally relied upon to make plays down the stretch of games, being that most of their careers they were either the best player on their team or at the very least the best playmakers on their team. Athleticism is going to go to Dave Bing. He was one of the first to blend his athletic ability with the textbook basketball skills and brought that athletic thunder into the league as one of the originators. Not necessarily as a high flyer, but a pure athlete that Archibald could never really amount to becoming, unfortunately. Now, efficiency is easily going to be Archibald though. I mean, he shoots better from all the splits, consisting of field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, and true shooting percentage, as opposed to Dave Bing. Impact is also going to go to Archibald. I mean, for his career, he impacted the game for a longer span of time while helping contribute wins at a higher level in his prime than Bing. He was also doing so on some pretty embarrassing teams, so you got to give him credit there. I mean, in 1972-1973, he joined Oscar Robertson as the only players to ever lead the league in both points per game and assists per game for an entire season. Now, Bing may have never had that exact peak for contributing to that much success, but he did so for more years at a higher level than Archibald too. This was a close one though, considering both of them have finished as high as third for MVP voting in a season. Both of them finished top 5 twice, and both of them had at least 5 years being in the MVP running to some capacity. Durability is going to favor Dave Bing though. Despite the fact that Nate Archibald's career extended for 14 years of time as opposed to Bing's 12, Dave Bing actually played 901 career games as opposed to Archibald playing 876. I mean, if you add in playoff games, Bing still has an edge by about 9 games. In fact, Dave Bing was once poked in the eye by Happy Harrison in a game in 1971 and had a detached retina, which very possibly could have ended his career. But over the next 2.5 seasons, he would play all but 1 game over that stretch. Every season, Bing played more than half the games, whereas Archibald had 3 seasons where he played below 50% of the games, and one of which he missed the entire year in 1977-1978 due to a torn Achilles. Now for the final 3 categories worth 10 points. Starting off with scoring, and when it comes to scoring, this has got to be Dave Bing. Now, Archibald does have a 34 point per game season, which is very impressive, but Bing has a 20.3 point per game average to Archibald's 18.8 for a career. He also edges out Tiny in the playoff scoring department, along with 7 seasons above 20 points per game to Archibald's 5 seasons. In terms of 15 points per game, Bing has 10 of those seasons, while Archibald only has 7. As for defense, this one also goes to Dave Bing. When we talked impact and how much a player contributed to winning, Archibald has 83.4 win shares to Bing's 68.8 of them. However, when looking at defensive win shares, Bing has 23.8 of them, while Archibald only has 18. And even with the game conversion, it would still be lower than Bing's. Additionally, it's the same case you see with guys like Steph Curry or Chris Paul that affects Nate Archibald. Are they the worst defenders in the world? No, but their size and limited lateral quickness, limited strength, and a smaller wingspan is often taken advantage of. Bing was not really ever taken advantage of on the defensive end though. And as for accolades, this one's going to go to Tiny Archibald. Dave Bing made 7 All-Star teams, while Tiny Archibald only made 6, but Archibald also has 1 championship to none for Dave Bing. He's also been to the All-NBA team 5 times to Bing's 3, and was first team All-NBA 3 times to Bing's 2. Both of them were actually scoring champions once, but Archibald was an assist leader, and Dave Bing won Rookie of the Year. As a whole, not much separates them to be noted other than probably the championship, but at the end of the day, it does matter. So in conclusion, this debate proved to be a super close one, and honestly, I don't know if it could get much closer than this. But the final score was 50.5 points to 49.5 points, separated by literally 1 point, with the winner being Dave Bing. This formula indicates that Dave Bing narrowly edged out Nate Archibald as the better player. But even with this formula, it is separated by 1 point at the end of the day. So I would not be upset or surprised if you took Tiny over Bing, or if you took Bing over Tiny. One thing that's for sure is that these two are some of the most underrated players in the history of the league, but the good thing is that the league has still recognized them and kept them within the 75th anniversary team that was just announced last year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you think Dave Bing or if you think Nate Archibald is the better player in the comments below, because I think this is a debate that doesn't really get talked about a lot. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.